Greetings, this is Amaboda. Today is February 9th, 2022, and today we've got a special guest, Donal McLean. And Donal has been online and posting some very inspirational stuff that I really admire, and I just thought I'd have him on to interview him and get kind of his perspective. Greetings, Donal.
Hello, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. You are awesome. So if you don't mind, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Well, um, right now I got no agenda or anything. I'm just a regular guy. I, I have a blue collar job. I work as an aircraft fueler in a small town called Spokane, Washington, and I just pretty much live for my family. And in my spare time, I enjoy talking about spirituality with people who have ears to listen. And
That's great. And that just shows the grassroots movement of what's happening right now with this spiritual awakening. It's like it's happening from all walks of life, and it's just part of the beauty about it. And I'm sure people here are curious about how you started on this path and what inspired you, what your personal journey's been about.
well, yeah, I was raised Mormon and or Latter-day Saint. I even served a mission and knocked on doors, got doors slammed in my face, the whole 9 yards. And I came to a certain point where I was I was really contemplating the nature of truth and how important truth was, and I found myself butting heads with at the time I didn't see it, but were essentially untruths within the church, and I had to face those down, and I had to really investigate, and the truth that I found transformed me. It made everything crumble, and I had to build everything back up again from scratch. And that was a long time of floundering. I think a lot of people can relate to having their whole paradigms crashing down around them. But from those ashes, something new can be reborn, and that's basically what happened to me. Is something new was born, and I found higher truth, higher love, and it just gave my life meaning. And yeah, I don't really know what more to say about that.
Okay, great. Well, when you say that something gave you meaning, what would you say would be the first inkling of hope that suddenly you felt things are getting better?
Well, the very first thing that I realized was that people did not care about truth. Most people do not care about truth. Most people care about their beliefs and sustaining their beliefs. And so the very first wall that I hit that pretty much shattered my paradigm was really realizing that people were more invested in fear than truth. I mean, you could say that the opposite of love is fear, but the opposite of truth is also fear. I think that truth and love have a lot in common with fear.
I hear you. I mean, I have a slightly different take on that. I regard, just to interject a little bit, but
Sure.
because this is kind of a two-way thing, really, it's not just about me interviewing you. It's you're going to be able to ask me questions
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But
Tell me.
just I've always regarded well, not always, but since my awakening, you might say, my crossing that threshold of illumination, I came to the conclusion that the opposite of love is not fear, but external desire. And that external desire, in turn, is the root of all other vices, and including fear. That fear is the desire for self-preservation or something like that. But everything has its root in desire. So if you conquer that one thing, desire, you conquer everything else: anger, lust, envy, jealousy, and whatnot.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like
and then the opposite of truth, in my opinion, is deception, because deception is truth is assertive, but it's asserting the real, and deception is also assertive, but it's asserting the unreal.
absolutely agree with that.
And truth is more in the mental realm, and love is more in the heart realm. So it's like you have these two twin spheres of pleasure that as an individual you can open up and have an open heart and an open mind. Just like you can't say an open heart is the same thing as an open mind, so also you can't say that love is the same as truth.
I agree. I see love and truth as a polarity on the same spectrum. On one side you have truth, the other side you have love, and it's kind of like the primal first polarity of all things, like hot and cold, left and right, truth and love.
Yes, and one thing just to add, on a biblical perspective, you've heard of Adam and Eve, I'm sure, but on one frame of reference, this isn't an exact thing. I'm not implying it's exact, but in symbology, you can imagine that Adam is truth and Eve is love. And love is born of truth, just as Eve is born of the rib of Adam, in the same similar sort of idea. Not to equate that all women are loving and all men are truthful, but
Right.
the essence, the archetype of that. It's kind of like one is born of the other.
Yeah, I've studied, as part of my journey, I've studied Hermeticism, which I've come to understand is basically the foundation of all of our like evolution and understanding of mathematics, uh, language, writing. All these things come from the root of Hermetic thought, and love and truth. These are concepts that sorry, I'm getting a little nervous here.
No. It's all
Yeah.
good. And if you want to ask me any questions too, you're free to. I from speaking with you, I realized that you've been listening to a lot of my podcasts, and so I didn't realize that you were into them. So that was a pleasant surprise to discover that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just that, in Hermeticism, the idea of the male, the masculine energy, and the female, the feminine, they have a special relationship where, even though they're polarities and opposites, we have this archetype of union between the two, resulting in the child. In Hermeticism, it's kind of this idea where when they unify, that child is divine and surpasses both mother and father. And this, to me, this is really the symbol of awakening. When consciousness, the father, unites with mortality, the mother, when they unite and they infuse, something new is created. Consciousness is able to break free from its old bounds and is able to grow and evolve and create something new, see something new. It's reborn. It's like the phoenix that rises from the ashes. So I found a lot of benefit from.
All right, that's great. And what I find inspiring is that everything that we can conceive of, as worthy, whether it be the feminine, whether it be the masculine, the mother, the father, all of that exists within us, and nothing truly dies. Everything stays. Everything that's worthy of lasting never dies. And that's amazing to know. And it brings me great comfort, because it makes me realize that the concept of loss itself is an illusion, that anything worthwhile we can never lose. And if we feel like we lost it, It's us not being in touch with the real.
I am 100% in agreement with you.
And so, yeah, but that might be a bit of a deeper topic that might go over some people's heads, but that's all good. But do you have any other question for me? We can, if you had any question you wanted to ask me that you never thought you, yeah, you're
Oh
welcome to.
man. Yeah, let's I geez, I'd love to go deep with you. Honestly, that's why I'm here. I want to deep dive, like uh love and truth. These are concepts that I just think are foundational, and I would love to talk more about them.
Okay. All right. Well, um, love itself and truth are the two primordial forces of the universe, as I mentioned before in many of my podcasts. And what is amazing about all of this is that it's accessible to everybody. And it's like having a gift within you, within everybody. And people aren't even aware of this gift that they have. And so when you are in touch with this yourself and you feel that love in your heart, or if you feel inspired within your mind, it's a comfort because you know that you're not special, so much more special than everybody else. You are just able to access the gift that people outside of you maybe have not yet understood or even realize is even possible. It's like you're doing what people think is impossible, but actually they're all capable of the impossible or what they think is impossible. So yeah, that's yeah. And so it's like you feel like you're Santa Claus. It's like you got this gift that you know everybody wants, but they just don't know that they want it yet. Mm-hmm.
I know that you talk about your experience of finding that eternal bliss that comes from this realization. And it wasn't too long ago, actually. I think the last time that we talked, I was like telling you, like, oh, it's just been kind of eluding me. But it was just like a week or two ago that I just sat back and I just contemplated my life and where I was at. And like I said, I'm just a guy who works a normal job with a normal family in a normal neighborhood.
But
And I
that's
just
the
realized,
thing.
wow.
That's the thing. That's your disguise. It's like people disguise themselves as being normal, but I don't see anybody really as normal. It's like you are a superhero and you believe you're Clark Kent, and that's what is true with pretty much everybody.
Well, that's just it. Like I realized that, wow, I have everything I've ever wanted. I have, I'm complete. I'm full. I could, I could die a happy man. I have a wife who loves me unconditionally. I have children who adore me. If this is an attainment, what is?
Well, you're very lucky because a lot of people don't have that, and so you.
Well, I didn't used to have it. In fact,
Mm-hmm,
everything used to be a struggle for me. But
mm-hmm,
when I realized, when I had this realization, it wasn't just all of a sudden I was saved or anything. No, it was a process of chipping away all that was like unworthy and sabotaging. Self-sabotage is real and we all do it. And I was doing it to myself and just chipping away at those things over time and now I'm
mm-hmm,
here and I'm happy and I'm actually I'm enjoying that bliss same as you now. And
mm,
you're right. You're right. You want everybody else to have it. And it's obvious why. Because nothing else is worth it. We all have this innate in us. Like it's ours. It's our birthright.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's for everybody.
It is.
Everybody can join the party.
It is. And when you're there, and it's like you can share that.
When you're there,
It's so
everybody is suddenly in this music video and dancing.
well, sort of like there's nobody that I look at and meet that I don't see the divine anymore. It used to be I felt disconnected. I saw that guy or that girl and they were just what they presented to me, but now everybody
Mhm.
I meet, it's like I'm meeting God for the first time in a new
So, would you consider
presentation.
yourself a positive person?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Certainly sounds like it. And what I find interesting is a lot of people find the concept of a positive person to be somehow triggering to them, or self-affronting, or because maybe they see the positive person and subconsciously they're seeing that they themselves maybe are not at that place yet, or maybe it's contradictory to their personal beliefs of being a realist. And that's a word I don't like. Actually, people say, "Oh, I'm a realist." Like that's a like that's a defense of your pessimistic attitude. It's like, well, if you're a realist, this is just how you are.
Yeah. Well, me personally, I see reality, I see everybody I meet as God. And if they're pessimistic, if they're trying to pull me down, it's because they're trying to teach me something that I need to learn. And so, like, if they're saying, for example, I had an experience the other day where I was talking to somebody online and they're being a real jerk, and I was trying to help them, and they were getting real mean. And I was, for 2 hours, it was like hitting my head against a brick wall. And he was telling me things like, you know, you got a man, you need to like grow some balls. I don't know if that's okay to say, but you need to
It's
grow. Yeah, you need to
huevos,
be.
huevos rancheros.
Yeah, yeah. Stop with the love and light. Be a man. Like you need to grow a pair. Like, and he just laying on thick abuse. And like I was just anyway, 2 solid hours of this. And finally I was like, you know what? I need a break. And so I walked away for 2 hours. Well, I came back and this guy was still going. Only I noticed that he was doing the same thing to everybody else. And in that moment it clicked for me. This man is God. He's here to teach me something. His words were grow a pair. I need to grow a pair. And as soon as I saw what he was doing, I was like, oh, okay. The light clicked. I saw who he was. He was a narcissist. He was an abusive person. He had no apologies whatsoever. And all I did was I went into the chat when it was like a group chat, and I said, this man is a narcissist. He has no ability to apologize. He is anyway, I just shined light on it. And
Mhm.
very quickly thereafter, he basically dug his own grave. I didn't even really have to do anything
Mhm.
else. I did. I continued on it. I didn't let go. But
Well, that brings an
that was
interesting point. I mean, I avoid focusing on negative people, and I don't. In fact, I try to. How do I say this? On the one hand, I relish confrontation. On the other hand, I avoid confrontation, and I do both of these things. I avoid
yeah.
confrontation, but when it happens, it's like, oh, I'm going to have fun with this.
I've always avoided confrontation. I've always been the most avoidant of confrontation type of people ever. This is
Mm-hmm.
kind of a new for me, to be honest with you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
because um, of course, people have different energies and different vibes, right? And especially for newer people who are starting to walk this path and be more positive, maybe they haven't developed a shield of positivity yet, and that's something that a lot of people are unaware of. People take ownership of how they feel and they take ownership of their emotions, and they don't realize that how much of an influence that people in their environment can have upon them. That there is, psychology doesn't even recognize this. I mean, they regard it as visual cues, like it's the expression on somebody's face that is causing that negative reaction in you. But they're not going deeper and realizing that no, there is actually an energetic shift that can happen between people. It's like one person feeling a strong emotion of anger can literally transfer that emotion invisibly to another person, and that's not yet recognized by psychology. But
I know
the
what you're talking about, though. Yeah, that's like empathy, sympathetic vibrations. I mean, if someone is in the room and they're feeling bad and I walk in that room, I'm not the only one. I think most people can relate to like feeling that.
And this is important on a corporate level too, because if you have toxicity that invades your company, that can actually translate into less profits. It's like you can be, you want to have a positive atmosphere in your company. And if there's somebody exuding a negative atmosphere and you're not aware of that, that can help to kind of bring down other people, because not everybody is strong enough to overcome that.
That's absolutely true. When I first awoke, this was many years ago. I right before it happened, actually, I intuitively reached out to a lady friend, a mutual friend of my wife's and my friend. Anyway, I reached
Mhm.
out to her, and the very next day, I had a full blown awakening, and it was super like I didn't know what was going on. Like it was a hard awakening, and it was like it involved Kundalini, and like I had no frame of reference. I was a Mormon kid, I didn't know what was going on,
Mhm.
and she helped navigate this for me. But she was very advanced. She had psychic abilities. She had oh man, she was very deep, but she lacked empathy, and I didn't see this at the time. And
Yeah, that pretty much defines what a sociopath is, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. I mean, she had it for me. She had plenty of empathy for me.
Hmm.
She was very understanding and helping me through it. Um, but my wife was going through. This was our second child. It was her. It was my first son, and for whatever reason, her carrying boys just doesn't mesh well with her system. And anyway, she was in full blown postpartum depression, and we didn't really know all this at the time, but it was really difficult for her. And then I was going through this, that was difficult for her, and I was really struggling with it. So I know I was hard on her. And this spiritual friend that I was reaching out to for helping me, get balance and everything, she was unsympathetic to her. And the next thing, like over time, it started driving a huge wedge between me and my wife, who I love
Hmm.
dearly. I didn't want to do this. I just I just didn't know. I just didn't know.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't.
all good. But it sounds like you got a beautiful relationship now. That's awesome.
It took a lot of work, and it took her knocking me down. It took her knocking me down many times because I was prepared. I was getting prepared to leave her and follow that same path without empathy. I
Mm.
was I was ready to do it. I was thinking about it.
Okay,
And
well,
I
it's
know that a
what
lot of people do.
as long as you're happy now, that's great.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm definitely happy now, but it was a rough road getting there. And
I mean, being in a relationship, this is a question that I'm sure many people struggle with, is that sometimes one partner can be more, how do I say, they can have an awakening, whereas the other partner maybe they regard as if have fallen behind a bit, and that they no longer kind of match up, because maybe one person's about truth and love and the other person is couldn't care less about that and just more about mundane, sort of stuff. Do you
yeah.
have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it happened to me. That was exactly me. That was my situation.
Mm.
Um, but I knew for me that the way that I wanted to go, and again, this was her like kind of smashing my head over it, pointing out to me that that this friend was being unsympathetic. Yeah, and it was a really complex story, but the
Well,
end result.
it's coming together now, the pieces. Now I understand your friend. Um, Sometimes people who are on that spiritual path, they regard that people on the spiritual path should have relationships with people that are also progressed along that spiritual path and not be dragged down by other people. So that's where she's
Exactly.
probably coming from, and
It
I
was where she
understand.
was coming from.
Hmm.
Yeah, I understood it too. It made perfect sense to me. I just realized that it wasn't the way that I could go. I had to go a way that uh, that had perfected empathy. I will not sacrifice empathy because I believe that empathy is the key to universal love and truth.
Hmm.
That's that's just uh, that's just where I'm at right now,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm
Well,
glad
well,
that I
you can be the rock in your relationship.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, honestly, she's
Mhm.
my rock. Um,
Okay, well, that too. That's awesome.
we're both each other's rock. That's how it should be.
Yeah, in the last podcast, I was talking about how the success of relationships, what we can help ensure that is when both partners can at least acknowledge the existence of a higher power, or at least acknowledge the existence of love or something that's greater than
You know,
each
yeah,
individual.
it wasn't that way for me in the beginning, but it is that way now, and
Hmm.
it creates harmony in a way that wasn't there before.
If I may ask, is she religious at all, or Mormon, or have any sort of?
Uh, we grew up Mormon, like we were childhood friends, and we both kind of fell away. We had our own falling away, separate from each other. But then later we met back up again, and we were both. I was always kind of like leaning more spiritual, but uh, she for a while was atheist, and now she knows that there's something else out there. It's not because of me, but just her own experiences.
No, it must be because of you. You must take full credit.
I definitely had an influence, like in supporting her.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Well, I mean, I would, if I were you, and I'm not telling you what to do or anything like this, but
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
if I were you, I would really emphasize aligning with her open-mindedness of a higher power and to try to bring out that more within her. And then you have that as a common bond of her conception of that, and that could bring you closer.
I like that. I feel like it's kind of naturally progressing that way, um, as it is. Like I guess it's not there yet, or
Well,
maybe I don't
I'm
know.
not saying that you're not there. I'm not making any judgment, but I'm just saying that is like, because whenever you look at these archetypes of gods and goddesses, whether Shiva, Shakti, and Krishna, Parvati, you know what is about them is that they're not just focused on each other. In fact, they are the two halves of a whole, and the whole is their focus more so than
Unity.
each other. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah, one does not live without the other.
but
One
it's
can
not about one
understand
living
without.
without the other. It's like you can be mutually independent, but your independence come because of your identification with the whole.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
And in relationships, I think that's a mistake people can make. And maybe I'm being a bit overly idealistic, and this could be controversial to some because other people will say, well, what do you mean? I am nothing without my wife. And the wives might say, I am nothing without my husband. We are inseparable. It's like, okay, that's great. That's great. I don't want to get in the way of you. Yeah, that's awesome. But maybe, just maybe, it's a good idea never to give too much power outside of yourself, because if you can feel whole through a connection that transcends flesh, you become more powerful as an individual. And as a more powerful individual, you can be a better wife. You can be a better husband. At least that's my opinion.
I think you're right. I think that it's not a dependency situation. It's an interdependence. We have the freedom and the power to grow ourselves uh, limitlessly if we want to on our own. But together, that union can create something even bigger. And that's
Hmm.
kind of where I find myself with her. I just feel devoted. My I feel like my whole existence is is devotion to her and my family and what we are as a unit. That unity is my purpose
Well,
now.
I think she's a very lucky woman to have such a fine husband as you.
Thank you. I tend to agree, but I feel like I'm the lucky one. And
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you're both lucky, and that's great. And it sounds like you got a lovely family. So, if you can share with the listeners, what would be a secret to your happiness as a family and in your relationship?
stop resisting. All of your problems come from resistance to what is. I just like every all the problems that I had in my relationship was my own resistance to her, to responsibility, to whatever it was. I felt too tired. I felt like, oh, I don't want to do that. Anything like that is just your own baggage. Remove it. It doesn't help. It's called resistance, and it's in your way.
So, how do you
It's
remove
angry.
baggage?
I mean, you have to accept it. I mean, you just have to accept what is. The way that you remove baggage is you drop it. You take it off your back and you set it down. Uh,
Well,
you have to
how do you know what is baggage and what isn't?
Well, you have to go through a process of conscious awareness of what is real and what is false. If you're dealing with these anchors, these are belief structures. These are things that you believe that are true, that are not actually true, that are holding you back. They're the substance of mental things. They're beliefs. You drop them, or you let
Mm-hmm.
them burn, and they'll do it on their own eventually. Whether it's like, if you resist to the certain point, you're going to get divorced, and then
Mm-hmm.
the whole structure comes burning down. Then you'll see what was real and what wasn't. You'll evaluate. You'll look back. You'll
Awesome,
know.
awesome. Do you have any questions for me? Anything?
um I don't have anything right now. I've loved talking with you, Atma. This has been pretty wonderful for me. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you too. And Spokane, Washington is a beautiful city there. Maybe someday I'll visit your area.
Well, if you're lucky, I'll fuel your plane.
Yeah, yeah. That's flying actually sounds like a lot of fun. I remember when I was younger considering getting a pilot license or something because I don't know if did you ever read that book, Jonathan Livingston Seagull?
I never did read it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very short book, and I think you would like it. And because the author went on to, he's actually a pilot. It was written by a pilot, and he pilots ultralights and stuff. But anyway, that's all good. So, as a married man, do you feel like you have any time to yourself, or do you feel like you're really um, your time is more occupied because of your family commitments?
Oh, I'm so busy. I do have time to myself, but I use that doing what I love, which is usually like engaging in conversation online with friends. Things that I can do that, you know, just take a couple
Mm-hmm.
seconds here and there.
Well, I know in
Um,
today's modern age, a lot of voices are basically seem to be discouraging the idea of marriage and family and um, gender roles and all of that. Do you have any opinion?
yeah, I mean, do what floats your boat, but I mean, there is something real important between between two people, and I don't think it matters if it's two males or two females or man and woman. I don't think that matters. I think what matters is the union of consciousness, and that that to me is worth working towards, fighting for.
Mm.
So that's my opinion.
No, that's awesome. I know presently I am single and I'm not out there looking for a partner just because I like this psychological term I was talking about yesterday, outcome independent, to be full and complete in every moment and not to require anything external, and just to let things happen the way that they're meant to happen.
That's beautiful. If the time is right and it presents itself, you'll be there, you'll be ready, she'll be ready, and it'll just click. I think that's how it works. So,
Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, I just feel grateful that I'm able to be in this loving state and blissful state all the time. And
well,
it,
thank you
it
for sharing it with me.
yeah. And you sound like you are receiving some benefit from these podcasts too. Would you mind sharing me what your opinion is about what you've experienced from listening to these podcasts?
Yeah, I feel like you're doing God's work, basically. I think that uh, people who are not who are not there yet would benefit greatly by listening to you and considering what it is that you have to say. I mean, it's not the words, it's what you're pointing at. And what you're pointing at, it's it's available for anybody. And once you see it, once you grasp it, you'll have your own words for it. I know I have my own words for it, and they're different than your words for it, but we're both pointing at the same thing. We're both speaking about the same thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's what's universally true.
Sure, sure. So do you have any final words you want to say? I think we should probably start to wrap things up. What do you think? You're free to make any closing statements or ask me questions or anything you like. You're
Um,
awesome, and I really appreciate having you on.
oh, thank you. I mean, just the purpose of life is evolution. That's just the way that I feel. The purpose of life is evolution. We're here to grow. We're here to learn. We're here to just make the best of our situation. And I guess I don't have a question for you, Atmaboda, but I'm just really appreciative for your work. You inspire me. You've given me a lot to think about and ponder, and I know I've grown from listening. And I think all of us who are sincere will as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, it's all happening. It's all expanding. The cosmic plan proceeds perfectly. It's all unfolding like a big giant flower. And we are all the individual petals of this flower.
that's right. We're each a part of it, aren't we?
Yeah. And it's only the beginning. It's looking around this world today. It's like there's so much negativity, there's so much pessimism, there's so much suffering, and it doesn't have to be this way. It can be better.
It
And
can.
mhm. And so people
It's
shouldn't feel like they should lose hope. They should understand that there's something better coming, and it's coming, and there's nothing
yeah,
that can stop it. It's inevitable.
it is. I agree with you, and we're being prepared to handle it too. I mean, the world is in many ways it's a pretty dark place, but we're being prepared for that. We're going to be able to
Mhm.
handle it. We can handle it.
I mean, the
So
thing about the world today is it's being run by desire, external worldly desire, and fear. It's like they want you to be afraid. They want you to be divided. They want you to be disempowered. And the irony is, what people don't realize is that your immune system becomes weaker when you experience fear. So, in promoting fear, they're actually spreading COVID easier, you know?
oh, for sure. They're also, by spreading fear, they're also giving the key to love. I mean, when someone else spreads fear. If another person is perceptive, they can use that as an entryway to greater love. So, all things have their purpose.
Yeah, and the greater the adversity, the greater the triumph. So
Exactly.
the more things look impossible, the more things look like insurmountable, and you've got this obstacle or this enemy, this fearsome object that it seems like it's crushing you. The more you feel that, the more, when you overcome it, the stronger you become. And when you do have victory, it becomes a triumph that can be celebrated, that ballads can be sung about. It's like
Yeah. Well,
without having
sorry.
adversity, you can't have a triumph.
Yeah. And it's like unless you really understand the pain, I mean, how will you comprehend the joy? It's like that comprehension of what's the worst really prepares your mind to perceive what's best.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, great, Donald. It's been a pleasure, and you have a fantastic time up there in Spokane and with your family. And it sounds beautiful, and it sounds like you've got some beautiful kids too. How many kids you got?
I got 3 right now and 1 on the way. I got a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Wow, you must be a great
Yeah.
dad. I think you're a dad
Well, I
the
don't like
neighbors'
tooting my
kids
own
could be
horn,
envy of. Be like, Dad, why aren't you as nice as Donald?
I have a perfect little family. Yeah.
Mm. Well, yeah, that's beautiful. Well, listen, you have an excellent evening out there in Spokane, and we can continue to keep in touch. And this is just the beginning.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right, you too. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.